It's that time of the week again. It's Friday, which means it's time to deploy. Joining me as always is Jim Pelletier. Jim, how was your week? How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Having a good week. It's AFL Australian Rules football final season kicking off down here in Melbourne, so things are starting to get exciting as we head in towards spring.
And who do you cheer for?
I barrack for the Melbourne Demons, who have made it into the finals, so I'm pretty hopeful. Heading
Awesome.
along next week.
Yes. So for those who are unaware, Melbourne is like London in the sense that they've got a bunch of teams in their sort of premiership, which is Aussie Rules Football. AFL stands for the Australian Football League, and Melbourne has a bunch of teams. And barracking means you cheer for. For those of you watching in North America, that means who you're cheering for. Anyways, yes, so that's cool. How are things going in computer land, software land these
Computer
days?
land, yeah. Interesting. I'm really getting, yeah. I mean, I suppose people don't know. I've been at Octopus for about a year, but I spent a lot of time over in our storefront side of things. So I was working on like the where you buy Octopus and manage your Octopus instances. I was over there, so I'm
Nice.
just sort of getting my hands on Tentacle and into the guts of server and stuff for the first time and having a heap of fun with that. Yeah.
Awesome. There must be some really interesting challenges to
Oh,
tackle.
there is. Testing's a really big one we've been talking about this week. Like
Mm,
with something like Octopus Server that's got things happening in the background a lot and things happening on the other side of a network somewhere a lot. How do you verify that behavior well and make sure we don't break things for all our wonderful customers?
that's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I've been busy as well. We've been doing a lot of webinars lately and a lot of 4 a.m. webinars. We're trying to cater to the US and UK audience, so what can you do? But anyways, let's get on with the news of the week. So for those who aren't aware, this is our basically a show where we talk a lot about the news and tech trends relative to Octopus. So we cover a lot of stuff relative to CI/CD. We talk about Octopus, things that have happened there, etc. So just to set some context there. So as I mentioned, we've been pretty busy on publishing content, etc. We've been doing lots of webinars and such. A few blog posts worth mentioning. So Bob Walker has published this one called "The Benefits of Isolated Tenanted Infrastructure." Excuse me. So Bob is our technical director at Octopus, and he does a lot of writing about high level concepts as well as deep into the guts parts of Octopus. So he's well breadth in that. And he talks in this sense when doing tenanted deployments, which is something that is tricky to wrap your head around because tenants have been around. The concept of tenants have been around for like ever. But when it comes to software, most people think of it as like, all right, it's based on where I'm deploying. Is that right? And so it's a bit more nuanced than that. There's actually four patterns that you can certainly adopt when it comes to that. Bob's uh, blog post here talks in particular about some of the isolation options that you can approach from that perspective relative to data. So when it comes to data, there are a variety of ways in which you can isolate your application from the data and make it a little bit more congruent, if you will, towards doing tenanted deployments. Incidentally, this will be part of his webinar that he'll be doing, which I'll just mention briefly, which is here. So Bob's doing a webinar entitled Rollback Strategies with Octopus Deploy, where he'll be talking about some of the strategies and techniques that he's written about here. You can sign up for this at /webinars. But in this article, he talks a little bit about, what are the various nuances and the reasons why they're important when it comes to applications and why tenanted deployments in particular align quite well when structuring your application this way. Another blog post that was written recently, which we've mentioned a few times, is the execution timeouts as well. And we've mentioned that previously. The Robert recently wrote about dropping support for Windows Server 2003. I talked about this recently on the last show, Deploy on Friday. So lots and lots of stuff there. And he keeps writing about tenanted deployments. So that's a lot of stuff on our blog. For those who aren't aware, we have a bunch of customer stories that have also been published. So some folks you may be familiar with, like Stack Overflow, Autosoft, EB Games, and others. These are folks who have very graciously shared their time and attention with us to share their story. And most recently, we've had folks like Guestline show up on webinars, and you'll see a version of those interviews up on our YouTube page. So our YouTube channel, which looks like this, has a bunch of videos, and we've got interviews with folks like Matthew, who's at Guestline. I talked to Steve Fenton about his white paper that he did recently. I'm realizing that these trailers are not doing the best justice, but that's okay. Jeffrey Palermo and I did a database deployments webinar recently, and then yesterday morning I hosted the community town hall for Octopus, which gives you a summary of a lot of the stuff that we've been doing. We talked about some of the stuff that's coming. We talked about the roadmap, etc. So lots and lots of stuff there. So again, that's up on our YouTube channel if you're at all inclined to check it out. And as I mentioned earlier, our webinars are available there. We have two other ones scheduled for September. So we have Ian and Ships, who are going to be talking about some of the new features we have for tenanted deployments at scale. That's on September 14th. And then wrapping up the month of September, we've got Clear Measure, again, talking about post-deploy smoke testing, health monitoring, and automatic environment scaling into deployments. So that's a bit of a longer title, but I guess it summarizes exactly what they're going to be talking about. So these and other webinars you can find on our webinars page, along with all the other recordings of webinars that we've done. So all of these get published to our YouTube channel, and you can see all our webinars there. We've got so many webinars now, Jim, that we have to redesign the page. We realize that this design doesn't scale because we're actually getting to the point where we're doing a webinar each week. We're probably going to be up to a webinar at least every 2 or 3 days. We're going to be kicking off a 101 series for folks who are interested in getting their feet wet with Octopus. We've got a bunch of stuff that's going to be around Kubernetes. We've got an event that's coming up in October, which we can't talk about just yet, but we'll be sharing very, very broadly soon. So lots of stuff happening there. So yeah, that's definitely.
I was going to ask you if you'd gotten over like seeing your own face on video all the time yet, just with the amount of webinars that were there.
With my low self-esteem and crushing need for being liked, no, never enough. I suffer greatly from low self-esteem. So I need to be constantly seen on video. I'm kidding, of course.
You look great.
So I appreciate that. Compliments will get you everywhere. So tenants, as I said before, is a bit of a gnarly topic to get your head around. And so we've got this landing page. This is at /features/tenants. And there you'll see a page that looks like this. And what this does, it basically gives a high level overview of what tenants are and how they work. And so if you're at all interested, you can check out this page. And this is a great page to share with your boss, with your coworkers, with folks who are asking like, hey, you know that tenants tab in Octopus UI that we never touch? Maybe we should take a look at it, and why? And so these and other questions can be answered just simply by navigating to this page. And we've also highlighted some of the new features we have in our tenant view, namely the ability to add multiple tenants to multiple projects, tenant tags, as we've had for a long time, but we have a new rendering for it. We've got a lot of new features there. So tenants is a very popular and very powerful aspect of Octopus, and so we're trying to highlight that as much as we can, which is good stuff.
The new pages really look great, don't they?
They do. I mean, the entire website, before the redesign, I was kind of like, the website's fine, blah, blah, blah. But it's getting pretty awesome. In fact, one of the things that we're looking at doing, and, this is not divulging any secrets, but when we're going to conferences and events, one of the things we're looking at doing is on the board, we're looking to have something like this with a light underpinning it, so you can actually see the deployments happening in our booth. So we're kind of trying to see if we can make that work. But I like the design. The look and feel is great. We've got it broken up by a variety of categories, as you've seen. We have our new white papers page. We have our webinars page. We have a bunch of white papers that have been written by folks across Octopus. Our latest one is this one by Steve Fenton called A Modern View of Multi-Tenancy. We have other ones as well. If you're looking at doing anything around deployments, we have our survey report, which is awesome. The importance of CD, how to map your deployment pipeline, yada, yada, yada. So lots and lots of stuff there we're checking out, and other things as well. So we have, solutions for a variety of different CI solutions or servers that are out there. We have a variety of features that are articulated as well, along with our roadmap. I keep touting our roadmap over and over again, but I think it's important. This is using product board under the covers. And this gets changed almost weekly. It's crazy. We've been talking recently about doing Kubernetes deployments, integrating with potentially Argo. This is on our under consideration tab. There are other ones as well, like redesigning our tenant variables dashboard, and we're showing up mock-ups of this. I love this because I think what this does is it gives us a really good context of if you're a customer of Octopus and you're looking at this like, oh, I get it. Yes, I want that. Or no, that's not quite what I want. Or this sucks. Please change it. And that's why you can vote down here, which is great. This one I like, the reprioritization of the task queue. So with this, what you can do is you can basically drag and drop tasks around. And oh, I guess I didn't want to render in side
Browser.
of Chrome, so I will drag it over here. Apologies for that. So the idea is you'll be able to take an item in a task queue and elevate its priority and move it up or down depending upon when you want to execute it. And so that's pretty awesome, I think. So yeah, I love. I think it's a great way to get feedback from customers, and as you can see, it's growing and growing. You might think the under consideration is like a backlog. It is kind of a sorts, but we do take this very seriously. Not to put things in here that we're not very serious about. And of course, there's our released features as well. So these are including the ones that we ship on Octopus Cloud, which tends to go a little bit earlier than say server. You can see our releases for 2023.2. 2023.4 is under active development right now, and we're already announcing stuff around 2024.1, namely Robert's post about dropping Server 2003 support. I don't think anyone's going to put much of a fuss over that one. We have to do it because it ties to .NET, right? So, it's
Yeah,
one of the things we have to do. So,
just a security
yeah.
concern after a certain amount of time as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So lots of stuff there. So yeah, coming full circle back to the website and the design, I like it. Yes. So kudos to the design team. They really knocked it out of the park, and we're very colorful and pretty, which I like. And don't forget also our videos that are up there as well. We're doing tons and tons of videos almost daily now. All right, so with that, let's move on to the industry news of the week. And these are the ones that caught my attention. Of course, this is not everything. There's a lot of stuff that's been talked about. This is an event being done by JetBrains, a .NET Day. This is coming up, which is great. This will be on September 26th and will feature a variety of presentations from a variety of different folks, featuring technologies like C Sharp, the Andy Framework, WASM, and others. So if you're at all interested, including how to recreate Wolfenstein 3D in F Sharp, this is something you might want to check out. So this is being hosted by JetBrains, our friends over there, and they've done this year over year. So this is September 28th, 26th rather. So go check that out. I'm sure the recordings will also be available on YouTube.
Yeah, that look
Moving
great.
on to yeah, moving on to GitHub. We talk about GitHub pretty much on every deploy on Friday because they just ship so quickly. I think they've taken the lead over the VS Code and TypeScript team for the most amount of releases. I mean, they're just constantly shipping. So this is an article I saw called 10 Things You Didn't Know You Could Do with GitHub Projects. I think this is also with GitHub Actions when I read this. So GitHub Projects, I think, is quickly becoming a very popular option for folks using GitHub. For a long time, it kind of languished, right? It was this thing that you didn't want to really touch because it was kind of a toy. But it's gotten a lot of improvements recently over the months for the past few months. And I'm really impressed with some of the features that you can do, some of the things you can do with projects. So, for example, you can manage projects with the CLI. So the CLI, which is at GitHub/CLI, is basically the way in which the command line interface for interacting with this thing. You can also access it at cli.github.com. And one of the things that's nice about this is that you can do some new operations against this. It's not just about pull requests anymore. You can integrate with projects, for example. So you can say GH space project and then, whatever it is you want to do as part of that. So if you want to drive workflow as part of this process and kick those things off through an automation, for example, you can do that. So the GitHub CLI will allow you to do that. Export your projects to TSV. So TSV is a great format for viewing projects in a variety of other locations like FigJam, Google Sheets, Excel, etc. So TSV is a very popular format, and so you can now export as TSV and then use those programs for viewing your projects in a different medium. Create reusable project templates. This one I love. This is very similar to issue templates, which I'm sure you've used, Jim, right? So when you create a new bug or new
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
You can basically create a template for those things. You can do that for not only your repo, you can do this across your organization as well if you so choose. So you can set up templates for all kinds of things. So project templates are basically like when you create a new item, when you're issuing, a change, for example. You can create a new item, and then these templates will kick in and allow you to customize that, and they show you how those things work. Copy a project, make a copy of a project. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. This is useful, especially if you set something up as a template, and you can do this also through the CLI. Automate your project with workflows. This is the big one. This should be number one. Automation of workflows of projects is super important, and this is keyed off of GitHub Actions. So with GitHub Actions, you can actually do a lot. It's not just about code. It's also about things like when a new project issue is created, or when something is moved from uh, under consideration to planned, for example. You can kick off various workflows. And so these are, of course, using actions and the real workhorse of GitHub. And so this is something that I think should be number one, is really nice. And there's events for all of this. So you can take a look at all the built-in workflows if you so choose that are available there. So there's a variety of built-in automations that you can use, or you can customize them yourself by simply wiring up the event handlers that are available in GitHub Actions and go from there. Add colors and description to custom fields. That's always nice. Add issues from any organization. So this is really important if you're maintaining an open source project and you want to link to other projects that are out there, for example. And this is useful, especially because there's interdependencies between projects sometimes, and so you can actually add issues from basically another organization if you want, which is great. Edit multiple items at once. I've known about this for a while. And then wrapping up, reorder fields and see what you want by seeing with a slice. So you can do filters. So these and other sorts of things are really, really nice. And this is the article, 10 things you didn't know you could do with GitHub projects. We're not using GitHub projects, but I think we should. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we debated on it for a while. I know that we use our issue management pretty seriously. So we have /issues, if I remember correctly. This is public, so /issues is our public repo for issues, and this is basically how we triage our incoming issues from customers. And so this is our public forum for doing that. So there's lots of options there. But if you're at all curious, we don't use projects internally, but maybe we should think about it. This is not we're not sharing telling secrets out of school. Like, we've looked at a variety of options, and we did look at projects. I think when I was part of the integrations team, we looked at projects for a really serious contender. And this was about
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. And
Mm.
projects was a bit of a toy. So we were like, I can't really do this. Now, I think I would seriously consider it.
Yeah. I mean, even in the time we've been talking about it, I've seen it, mature a lot. Hey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So right now we use Shortcut, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
and we synchronize that with like being a typical software team. We're like, yep, we trigger workflows off this. So I know that we underpinned it with Zapier and Workato to do a bunch of syncing with Slack and stuff like that. So we every solution now is like just duct tape and twine, kind of like and a little bit of spit to make things work. But I think GitHub Projects is definitely coming a long way, and so I think that if you're at all curious, you should check it out. All right. GitHub Enterprise Server 3.10 is now generally available, though this is basically for folks who want to host GitHub and behind the firewall. And the reason why this is important is because, as we just mentioned, GitHub Projects is generally available. So this is going to allow you to manage your projects from within GitHub Enterprise. There's other options as well in 3.10, always deploy safely, custom protection rules. We talk about protection rules all the time on this show. We utilize them heavily. And they're great for making sure that checks are verified, or making sure that, other options that you have to specify as part of builds or as part of your CI process have to flow. Vulnerabilities of all your dependencies, advanced security code scanning. We use this as well. We talked about me leaking a PAT one time. So a personal access token of GitHub, I leaked accidentally one time, and it immediately got caught and invalidated. We integrate with advanced security as well. So if you accidentally issue a PR with a API key to Octopus, we will invalidate that and notify you. So it's a pluggable architecture basically from GitHub. GitHub has a bunch of providers that they integrate with, and so people have certain format strings that they use for various API keys and so forth. So you can check that. Fine-grained access skins. So this is something that was introduced, I think, a while back in GitHub proper. And so you can designate this now as part of enterprise. Branch protections meet more compliance needs, and then backup instances faster. So these are new features are available inside of Enterprise Server. This is something that isn't used a lot, but we're starting to see it more and more with customers. So we're starting to see customers utilize Enterprise Server a little bit more. GitHub predominantly, it's like, Google versus Bing. It's like GitHub versus GitHub Enterprise. Not a lot of folks use GitHub Enterprise, but it is slowly becoming a thing. Staying with GitHub, why Rust is the most admired language amongst developers. So, Jim, I know that have you delved into Rust yet? Have
I
you
haven't actually
taken?
delved in it, so I'm interested to know what they say because I like the sound of it, but I'm only going on hearsay.
Okay.
Mm.
So I've looked at Rust. The volume of support on crates when it first was like becoming popular wasn't impressive, but the amount of crates that are out there now is pretty good.
Mm.
Super duper is type safe. The compiler will catch everything and like drag you kicking and screaming into a
That's
very
what I want.
strongly typed world.
That's what I want. Yeah.
Very fast, very fast, and very secure from that perspective. So, what is Rust? Print
Hmm.
line,
Hmm.
hello world, and they talk a little bit about Ferris, who's the official or slash unofficial mascot of Rust. Rust needs to have the trademark logo or the
Or
copyright. I
else
don't know which one it is. Yes, or else.
the crab will get you.
What Yes, exactly. So for those who don't know, the Rust Foundation did some things earlier this year that kind of upset people relative to their copyright. Is it copyright or trademark? I can't
I
remember
don't
which
know.
one. So,
Yeah.
anyways, doesn't matter. So key features, they talk about some of the things like, it's actually what's interesting. Mark Russinovich, who's the CTO of Azure, said that you shouldn't really be doing C++ anymore. You should venture on the side of Rust. And
Mm.
so Rust is, as we mentioned before, Rust is now part of Windows, I believe. And so the runtime is now built into Windows, I believe, if I'm remembering
Oh wow.
correctly. I think we talked about it on an earlier edition of Deploy on Friday. Um, there was an article on the Register, I believe, that talked about this. Rust is utilized in a lot of low level, but also high level programming. So both fast and reliable, can write multi-headed programs that run on 16 cores and keep them readable, maintainable, and crash free. Also allows me to write very low level algorithms requiring control over memory layout and pull in a crate that makes HPS requests super simple. It's a combination of these features that make Rust so new unique. So concurrency out of the box. This is also a strength of Go. No garbage collection. So you can see that's as a strength or a weakness. I don't know. Cargo Packer Manager. This is a must now. If you're writing any type of programming language, you have to have a good package management solution. NPM, Go, Rust, .NET with via NuGet, uh, Java. I laugh when I say Java because it's a bit of a mixed bag, but built-in package management super important. Being able to ship crates. Zero cost abstractions. This feature allows developers to write high level code abstractions and features without introducing any runtime performance overhead. Pattern matching. That's always a good one. Type inference. Yes, that's important, especially when using very strong types. You want to make sure that you're not having to. You don't want your code looking like C++ anymore. C++, the modern version of C++, is getting kind of very descriptive. Let's say commonly used for performance critical backend systems, developing operating system adjacent code, things like libraries, things like that. So very important. I think that Rust is still on the up, and so they mention a bunch of the reasons why. Why developers love Rust. So this is the question we want to ask. So admiring Rust isn't just about adopting language; it's embracing a mindset that prioritizes innovation without compromising on the core tenets of stability and security. All right. How to get started with Rust, etc. You can watch the Primogen. His channel is awesome. He talks about Rust all the time, although he's slowly moving over to Go. So it's the Gophers versus the Crabs. So we'll see who
Mm.
wins out on that. But I like Go. I've used Go for a number of years, and I think it's great. All right. I know you're not using Mac, right? You're still on Windows.
No, I'm using Mac. This is me.
Oh, you are? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My apologies. Okay, I know you're going to be deeply upset about this, being a
I don't
writer
think
guy.
anyone's using Visual Studio for Mac. The
Yes,
only reason I even know Visual Studio for Mac exists anymore is because when you uninstall versions of the .NET runtime on Mac, it goes, "Hey, whoa, you might be breaking Visual Studio for Mac,"
yep,
and everyone's
yep.
like, as if.
I downloaded this. I think I still have it. Visual Studio for Mac retirement announcement. So this is not super surprising. Not a lot of people jumped on this bandwagon. I downloaded it, wrote a couple of programs, and then shut it down almost permanently. So Visual Studio for Mac IDE, there was a lot of promise around this because they were like, finally, Microsoft's taking the Mac seriously and they're going to give Xcode a run for its money. But I'm like, no, there's no reason. There's no reason to. Xcode is its own thing. So Visual Studio for Mac 17.6 will continue to be supported for another 12 months and then will be shut down. Why? What is the announcement? When? What? They got to look at, yeah, there's no real reason why. I think that everyone knows the reason why. The reason why is like no one was really using it. So, the three people who are using it, I think, are really upset, but, yeah, that's just the way it is. There happens to be a lot of comments. So, I think a lot of, okay, well, there's some interesting comments in there. I just saw one I'm going to scroll by. Yeah, some people are agreeing, some people are not agreeing. I guess in the face of Maui and other technologies, mono-develop,
Yeah.
for example, I don't know. Jeff Rains thanks you for your contribution to the rider market share. Let's be real, it was never a great idea. Yeah, I think this is true.
Yeah.
It felt like Eclipse to a certain extent. Like it was kind of ugly in some ways. I say was. It's not gone. I'm not dead yet. The Monty Python skit. So yeah, I think VS Code is pretty good. I think you get pretty far in VS Code, and I think the writing was on the wall for a while with this. So not surprising, but newsworthy, which is why we're mentioning it. Our friends over at BuildKite recently wrote about getting started with Kubernetes and BuildKite. As you know, I'm a fan of BuildKite. I think it's great as a CI solution. And they talk a little bit about, so you've heard about this CI/CD tool called BuildKite. You may even know that it has a fantastic story on AWS. When you bring your own compute by running your own EC2 instances, auto-scaling group. It's dead simple, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, they talk a little bit about how you can use this a Kubernetes cluster for your CI/CD agent. So the way that BuildKite works is they espouse what's called a hybrid model. So the thing that does all the controlling of agents, which is like the UI and the designating of jobs, etc., that is something that BuildKite hosts as a SaaS. It's like a cloud-based solution. But the agents that run, it's like Tentacle. The agents that run local to your machine so that your source code never leaves the firewall, those agents run local. So you install the agents, and those agents do all the heavy lifting and then report back basically success, fail, etc. It's kind of like Tentacle. Tentacle operates in a very similar
Yeah.
sort of way. You have these sort of workers, etc. So yeah, they talk a little bit about how you can use this, and then they have an agent here for Kubernetes. So they have a agent stack Kubernetes agent that you can use. It's also available as a Helm chart, which is awesome. We have a Helm chart for Octopus as well, so very similar sort of story here. And you'll find this up I'm assuming at Docker Hub. So step number one: get a Kubernetes cluster. This is not a small step.
Easy.
This is
Easy.
yes, no problem. Next, finish. I've got clusters in kind, AKS, EKS, GKE, the usual suspects. Register some secrets, install the Helm chart. That one's the easiest one. Create a bunch of BuildKite pipelines. That one's not so bad. These are just basically YAML or declarative pipelines, depending on what you want to use. Run the pipelines and then profit. I like it. Old meme. Set up a Kubernetes cluster. That's obviously, Kind's a CLI that you can use for this. It's very easy to use. You can do this also with the usual suspects, AKS, GKE, EKS, etc., which we'll skip. Everyone knows how to set up that, right? Notice step one is like half the document. Add some secrets. Away you go. Set up your pipelines. Install via Helm chart. Everyone knows that. And then here's the money of basically for build kite. So run a pipeline. This is the execution sort of UI for a build kite. So for those of you who haven't seen this before, this is what build kite looks like when it's running a job. And the agents communicate back via this UI. So you have a running log, very similar to Octopus, um, and and then clean up basically. So this is basically a setup process for doing it with Kubernetes, which I thought was interesting. I like build kite. I think build kites are pretty cool CI in my view. I don't see it as so much I see us more of the CD side, which is why we integrate with it. But they've got some pretty prominent customers using it. So Slack, Uber, for example, are using BuildKite. Super performant, built on Go, super multi plat, super concurrent. So yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's a pretty good way of doing builds. And I love that, just like us, their design shops have gotten really good. So this is like, their latest release, and they've gotten really good on kind of like with their design aesthetic. So it's kind of
Mm.
similar to us. We're having a better time, promoting our stuff via our designers, which is awesome. So
More
lots
developers
and lots
doing
of
the bad
stuff there.
stuff.
That's right. That's right. Anyways, so yeah. Anyways, that wraps up this edition of Deploy on Friday. Jim, any final thoughts before we head on out?
Not this time on a Friday. Thinking's about stopped.
Nice. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for joining. We really appreciate it. And if you happen to have just stumbled upon us, feel free to like and subscribe. Otherwise, let us know if you have any thoughts or opinions on the articles we've shown, or if you have something you would like us to discuss, feel free to hit us up on social media. Happy to join in the conversation there. Until next Friday, we'll see you again. Have a great week, everyone. Take it easy.
See ya.